The Las Vegas Raiders already made some very interesting moves this offseason, and no players have even been brought in yet. After a very tough season last year, in which they did not see much success, they decided to fire coach Antonio Pierce and bring in former Super Bowl winning head coach and 73-year-old Pete Carroll. Not only that, but they decided to give a huge contract to national championship winning offensive coordinator Chip Kelly. Pete Carroll to me is a big signing for the Raiders because they need a culture shifter. Sure, all those offensive-minded young head coaches are great, but what the Raiders need is a proven leader who can come in and shift the culture right away. And to me, that is exactly what Pete Carroll can do. As I mentioned, he is very experienced and has already won the big one before. So coming in and taking over a team that has not had much success the past couple of years will be a big benefit for Vegas, especially if they do what I think they are going to do in the draft. Before I get into a deep dive on the Raiders and what I want to talk about in this video, I would really appreciate it if you would drop a like and subscribe. It only takes 5 seconds, plus you can always change your mind. We are on the road to 50,000 subscribers, and with your support, I believe that we can get there super fast. Alright, so in the draft this year, the Raiders currently hold the 6th overall pick, and there have been multiple rumors of them potentially trading up with maybe Cleveland to potentially try to bring Shedeur Sanders to Vegas. But however, per multiple reports, Cleveland is starting to really like Sanders, and tons of their fans really want to see them take him at number 2. So while it is still possible to trade up and take him at number 2, they may have to give up a lot to move up that many picks, and I'm not sure that is something they would like to do, especially with how most of the good QBs are most likely going to come from next year's draft class. There is always, of course, that chance that maybe somehow Sanders slips past the Browns and the Giants, which means he would fall right into the Raiders' laps at 6 because the Patriots or Jags will not take a QB. So in that case, they end up with the guy they wanted and do not even have to move up. However, like I said, that's not a likely scenario. But hey, you never know. Crazy things happen in the NFL draft all the time, and maybe they end up getting their guy anyways. However, they do have to do something at the QB position if it's not with their 6th pick, because last year, they arguably had the worst QB room in the league. Actually, no, it's not arguably. They did have the worst quarterback room. And with the revolving door of starters between Aiden O'Connell, Gardner Minshew, and Desmond Ridder, something's gotta change. They have some options, and 2 of them tied to their new coaches. The one I mentioned in a previous video being Russell Wilson and his ties back to Pete Carroll, but a new one is a tie to Chip Kelly, and that could be them potentially drafting Will Howard. This may be a hot take, and I know a lot of you guys are probably going to disagree, but Will Howard should be a 2nd to 3rd round pick, especially after how well he played in the national championship run for the Buckeyes, and he has an NFL build, being 6'4" and 235 pounds. And with that build, he's actually able to move pretty well. I like to call his ground game sneaky athleticism. A lot of people were worried about how well he could throw the deep ball, but I think he responded very well to that question and made some great deep throws in that championship run. There still are some question marks with Will, as sometimes he tries to force things and will just randomly make a head-scratching play, but for the most part, what we saw from Will Howard at Ohio State was a big, strong QB with pretty good arm talent, making very good throws, as well as being a leader and getting his guys fired up. It almost seems too obvious for Howard to end up with his offensive coordinator Chip Kelly, and I would love to see the Raiders be able to draft Howard if they do not end up getting a guy like Shedeur, as well as maybe bringing in a veteran QB and letting Howard eventually develop into a starter. As far as what they could do at 6, if it is not a QB, there are a lot of options and directions they could go, but what I would love to see them do is take Ted McMillan and secure the true wide receiver 1 they lost when Devontae Adams forced his way out last year. McMillan is a freak athlete and will no doubt be one of the better wide receivers in this league right away. We saw a pick like this work out for the Giants a year ago with Malik Neighbors, and I think getting McMillan to pair alongside Jacoby Myers, who had a good season last year, and of course Brock Bowers, who is already in the conversation for the best tight end in the league after his record-setting rookie year, would turn this offense around instantly. I also would like to see them maybe take a running back with one of their picks to change this offense around, and I think a guy like Omarion Hampton from North Carolina in like the 3rd round could make a lot of sense for them. And while this offense would have a lot of young guys on it, I think a mixture of that with a few potential free agents is exactly the recipe they need this offseason offensively to give Chip Kelly something to work with. Hampton had over 2,000 total yards and 17 total touchdowns last year at North Carolina, and I think he could really take off in a Chip Kelly run scheme that worked very well for Ohio State last year. Obviously, college to NFL is a huge jump, but we have seen run schemes like that work for teams very well before, and they need a good back to do it, and I think Hampton and another veteran, whether they are already on the roster or not, would work very well for it. Also, there is of course another tie back to Kelly that I'm sure a lot of you guys are thinking of that could make sense for the Raiders, which is of course Quinshon Judkins, who was very effective under that Chip Kelly run scheme I mentioned, and is someone to watch for the Raiders to pick up as a potential maybe 3rd round pick, maybe even 4th round pick, likely around the same area I would see them taking Hampton. And I think Judkins would fit them very well and could come in and make an instant impact. I mean, I kind of view him as a Kareem Hunt type of player. That's definitely the player comp that I view him as. And with Chip Kelly being there, you now kind of have to watch every Ohio State offensive player as a potential pick for them to get in the draft, just because of the connection. This is certainly a very good running back class, so if they want to get a guy maybe in the 3rd round, this is definitely the year to do it. And these are just 2 of the many good options they could choose to go with. As I mentioned as well in a prior video about the Raiders, there are multiple free agents that I would like to see them target, such as Aaron Jones or T. Higgins, because this roster needs a lot of help, and while it is unlikely that they can turn it all around in just 1 year, they can certainly improve with some of these potential pickups and draft picks. And like I said, I really like the hiring of Pete Carroll, as well as spending big money to get Chip Kelly, who is coming off doing the best work of his career so far, even though it was at the college level. I do not think the Raiders' offensive line was really that bad last year. Sure, they were not great, but I think the QB play made them seem a lot worse than they really were. So if they could bring in a veteran quarterback like maybe a Justin Fields or a Russell Wilson, or draft someone like Will Howard, and then make a few moves as well in the skill positions, this offense could make a 180 turnaround. I'm sure Tom Brady will have a huge part in building some of this offense, especially at the quarterback position, because after all, he is the greatest QB of all time, and it's not a debate. So I think he should absolutely have a hand in choosing who will be the next QB of this team, and what their plan is going forward at the position, as well as many other things. Anyways, moving on to the defense, which was not great this past season at all, but also statistically were not horrible. They ranked 16th in opponent pass yards a game, and 12th in opponent rushing yards a game, which statistically is not horrible, but again, they were 25th in the league in opponent points per game. Now, of course, the offense did not give them any help, as they averaged 1.7 giveaways per game, so they were not putting good spots necessarily at all, but there were just certain areas that really got exposed last year, and they need to address them. Of course, as a rebuilding team, there is always a chance they could look to trade some of their best talent, and their best is indeed Max Crosby, who I'm sure they could get a huge haul for. I don't think it would be wise for them to move on from Crosby, because he is no doubt one of the best edge rushers in the league, but if they want more picks and want to go full rebuild, I'm sure there is a chance they would be willing to move on from him, but that is only for the right price. Outside of that, I mentioned that they could use some secondary help from a guy like a Carlton Davis, who would probably cost them a lot, but they could also maybe target some guys like Justin Reed or DJ Reed at safety and corner respectively. They could definitely use a lot of help on defense, and I cannot wait to see what they do over the next few months to try to address these issues. All in all, the Raiders are in a very interesting spot right now, and I'm very interested to hear what you guys think they should do in the comments below. That's really all I have to say for this video. Thank you all so much if you made it to this point, and if you enjoyed and haven't yet, please be sure to drop a like and subscribe, because your support truly does mean the world. And also, let me know what you'd like to see next, and until then, I will see you all later.